The steady hum of the airport filled the air, rolling suitcases, echoing announcements, laughter, and rushing footsteps. 7-year-old Malik Brooks held tightly onto his father's hand, his eyes wide with excitement as they approached the jet bridge. He'd never flown before, and this wasn't just any flight, it was first class. To Malik, that meant magic. To his father, Dr. Aaron Brooks, it was a proud reward for his son's straight-to-report card. "Ready to fly, champ?" Aaron asked, smiling down. Malik nodded, gripping his toy airplane. "Do they let kids like me fly in the front, Daddy?" Aaron chuckled softly. "Of course they do, buddy, you earned it." The gate agent scanned their tickets and smiled. "First-class passengers, welcome aboard." Malik beamed. He loved the sound of those words, first class. The polished cabin gleamed under soft gold lighting. Plush seats, white tablecloths, the faint scent of coffee and luxury. It was a new world for Malik. But the warmth vanished when a woman's shadow fell over them. A flight attendant with crisp hair and a too-tight smile paused in front of their seats. Her badge read Susan. Her eyes flicked from Aaron's dark suit to Malik's small brown hands gripping the toy plane. "Excuse me, sir," she said with polite stiffness. "This section is for first-class passengers." Aaron looked up, momentarily confused. "Yes, we know, these are our seats." He held out the boarding passes. Susan's expression didn't change. Her eyes darted toward Malik again as though searching for an explanation. "I see," she said. "But are you sure these belong to you?" Malik blinked. "Daddy." Aaron's jaw tightened. He forced a calm smile. "Yes, ma'am, we're quite sure." Susan leaned closer, lowering her voice but not enough to hide the condescension. "We've had mix-ups before," she said. "Sometimes economy passengers accidentally sit up here." Aaron's voice stayed calm, but his tone shifted, quiet steel. "There's no mistake. My name is Dr. Aaron Brooks. My son and I paid for these seats." A few passengers nearby turned to look. Some frowned, some pretended not to see. Malik could feel their stares like needles. His excitement melted into confusion. "Did I do something wrong?" he whispered. Aaron placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "No, son, you did everything right." But Susan didn't move. Her smile grew. "I'll have to double-check with the captain," she said, tapping her pen against her clipboard. "Until then, perhaps your son could wait in the back." Aaron froze. The words didn't make sense. Wait in the back. "It's just temporary," she added quickly, "until we confirm." Malik's small voice trembled. "Daddy, I don't want to sit by myself." Aaron looked up at Susan. In his most dangerous tone, he said, "He's not moving anywhere." But Susan had already turned, motioning to another attendant. "Ma'am," Aaron said, standing slowly, "I suggest you don't make a scene." Susan smirked slightly. "Sir, I'm just following procedure." Malik's eyes filled with tears. "Daddy." Aaron crouched to meet his son's gaze. "It's okay, buddy," he said softly, though his heart was pounding. "We'll handle this." But before he could say more, Susan reached out and gestured for Malik to follow. "Come on, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping false kindness. "Let's find you a comfortable seat for now." Malik hesitated, looking between his father and the attendant. His little hand loosened from Aaron's. Aaron's world went still. Every heartbeat was thunder. He stood there, motionless, watching as his son was led down the aisle, past staring eyes, whispering lips, and judgment that hung thick as smoke. When Malik disappeared beyond the curtains separating first class from economy, Aaron sat back down slowly, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from something colder. He opened his phone camera, tapped record, and whispered, "Flight 4827 to Dallas. Let's document what just happened." His voice was calm, too calm. The storm hadn't erupted yet. But everyone would soon feel its power. The soft hum of the engines did little to calm Aaron's pounding heart. His phone camera captured the stillness of first class, passengers pretending to look elsewhere, guilt in their lowered eyes. He panned slowly toward the curtain where his son had disappeared. The flight attendant's voice echoed faintly beyond it, sharp and clipped. Aaron swallowed the rising anger. He had faced prejudice before, but never involving Malik, not his boy. Minutes passed like hours. Then Susan returned, clipboard in hand, her tone forced into civility. "Sir, I've spoken to the captain. There seems to be confusion about your reservation." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Confusion?" "Yes," she said curtly. "Your ticket shows first class, but the system—" "The system," he interrupted softly, "or your assumption." Her eyes flickered. "Excuse me." Aaron leaned back in his seat, the camera still rolling. "You assumed we didn't belong here. You didn't check the system until after you moved my son." A flush crept up her neck. "Sir, I was just following procedure." Aaron gave a slow, humorless smile. "Funny. Procedure always seems to target the same kind of people, doesn't it?" Her jaw tightened. "There's no need to make this racial." The words hung heavy in the air. A man across the aisle shifted uncomfortably. A woman covered her mouth, whispering to her husband. The silence grew unbearable. Aaron finally set the phone on his tray table, lens still pointed toward her. "Bring my son back," he said evenly. Susan hesitated. "We're at cruising altitude. It's better if he stays seated for now." Aaron's tone dropped an octave. "Bring him back." Something in his voice made her falter. Without another word, she turned and disappeared behind the curtain. For the next few minutes, Aaron sat still, his mind racing. He thought of Malik's trembling voice, his little hands clutching that toy plane. He thought of every time he'd been told he was in the wrong place, even when he'd earned it. The injustice tasted bitter like metal, but rage wouldn't solve this. Strategy would. When Susan reappeared, Malik was beside her, eyes red, cheeks streaked with tears. Aaron's heart broke at the sight. Malik climbed into the seat without a word, curling against his father. Susan cleared her throat. "Everything's fine now." Aaron didn't respond. "Sir, if you could just delete the footage," she continued nervously. "We can forget this ever happened." Aaron finally looked up. "Forget?" His voice was calm, but his eyes were deadly cold. "I'll make sure no one forgets." A ripple of unease spread through the cabin. Susan took a small step back. "I didn't mean." "I know what you meant," Aaron said. "You wanted silence. You wanted my son to disappear quietly to the back, where people like him don't disturb your perfect cabin." Susan's lips parted, but no sound came out. She turned and hurried away. Malik looked up. "Daddy, did I do something bad?" Aaron's throat tightened. "No, champ," he whispered, stroking his son's hair. "You did everything right. Some people just don't see right away how special you are." The boy nodded weakly and held his toy close. As Malik drifted to sleep, Aaron stared out the window. The world below looked peaceful, tiny lights scattered across endless darkness. He thought about how easily people like Susan could shatter that peace for others. He didn't want revenge, he wanted truth. So he opened his laptop, connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi, and began typing. A calm, factual account. No insults, no anger, just the truth. He attached the video, added the flight number, and hit upload. The title read, "My son was removed from first class because of his skin." By the time the plane descended toward Dallas, Aaron's phone vibrated with notifications. Thousands of shares, comments flooding in. He exhaled slowly, looking down at Malik sleeping peacefully. The storm had begun. But this time it was his to command. The sign chimed, and the passengers began gathering their things. Malik still slept against Aaron's chest, his small breath steady. The flight was nearly over, but Aaron's battle was just beginning. As the plane taxied, his phone buzzed nonstop. The video, barely 2 hours old, had exploded online. Tens of thousands of views were climbing into hundreds of thousands. Hashtags formed like lightning. Let Malik fly, justice at 30000 feet, first-class bias. Aaron didn't smile. He simply scrolled through the comments, people in disbelief, others furious, and many admitting they'd seen similar treatment but stayed silent. The quiet shame of a nation was finally speaking. Across the aisle, Susan fidgeted, eyes darting toward him. Her perfect composure from earlier was gone. She, seen the red recording light, now she saw her name trending on Twitter. One passenger whispered her name to another, and her face drained of color. Aaron looked straight ahead. Not one word of anger, not one threat. Just silence, the kind that makes people listen harder. The captain's voice came through the speaker, slightly strained. "Ladies and welcome to Dallas. We ask that all passengers remain seated until the sign is turned off." When the plane stopped, Aaron gently nudged Malik awake. "We're here, champ." Malik rubbed his eyes, yawning. "Are we home?" "Almost," Aaron said softly. "But first, there's something we need to finish." Susan approached cautiously. Her voice trembled. "Sir, Dr. Brooks, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. It was all a misunderstanding." Aaron stood, meeting her eyes without blinking. "You mean it was convenient?" She hesitated. I didn't mean any harm." "You didn't have to," he said. "Harm doesn't always shout. Sometimes it smiles and whispers procedure." Her face reddened. "Please, sir, I'm asking you not to post that video." Aaron tilted his head. "It's already done." Her mouth opened, but no words came. The moment stretched painfully long. Then Aaron turned away, lifted Malik's bag, and walked toward the exit. Passengers moved aside to let them through. Some murmured quiet apologies, others nodded in silent support. A few even clapped softly as Malik walked past, holding his toy plane like a trophy of courage. As they stepped into the bright terminal, reporters were already waiting, microphones ready, cameras flashing. Someone had leaked the flight number. "Dr. Brooks, is it true your son was removed from first class?" Aaron stopped, straightened his suit, and nodded calmly. "Yes, and it wasn't because of a mistake, it was because of an assumption." Gasps and murmurs followed. "Do you plan to take legal action?" another asked. Aaron smiled faintly. "I don't sue for change, I teach it." He took Malik's hand and began walking toward the terminal exit. The crowd parted, phones raised, eyes watching. Behind him, Susan lingered at the gate door, her hand over her mouth, realizing her career might already be over. Outside, Aaron loaded Malik into their car and sat behind the wheel. For a moment he just breathed, slow, deliberate. He wasn't angry anymore. He was resolved. He turned to Malik, who was watching him quietly. "Daddy, are people mad at that lady?" Aaron nodded. "Some are, but that's not the point. We don't want people mad, we want them aware." Malik tilted his head. "Aware of what?" Aaron started the car, looking out at the runway where planes were taking off, one after another, soaring into open skies. "That where you sit doesn't decide who you are," he said softly. "How you treat people does." As they drove away, the sun dipped low over the horizon, golden light spilling across the airport glass. In that glow, Aaron knew something had shifted. This wasn't just his fight anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever been quietly told, "You don't belong here." And though Susan didn't know it yet, the quiet father she had dismissed had just become the voice the entire world was about to hear. By morning, Aaron's phone was a storm of notifications. His simple video, 2 minutes of calm truth, had crossed 10 million views overnight. Major news outlets picked it up. Hashtags blazed across social media. "Let Malik fly," "Bias in the sky," "Brooks vs. the airline." The footage was everywhere. Susan escorting Malik down the aisle while passengers stared in silence. The sight of a tearful little boy clutching a toy plane broke America's heart. Aaron hadn't added commentary. He hadn't needed to. The silence in the clip spoke louder than any speech could. In the morning light of his Dallas home, Aaron sat at the kitchen table scrolling through messages. Thousands of strangers thanking him. sharing their own stories, confessing moments when they had stayed silent. His sister Jasmine called first. "Aaron, you're on every channel. CNN, NBC, even Good Morning America. They're calling you the calm father." Aaron exhaled slowly. "I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to be heard." "Maybe," Jasmine said gently, "you were meant to be both." Malik entered the kitchen still in pajamas, dragging his toy plane. "Daddy, why are there cameras outside?" Aaron smiled faintly. "Because the world's listening, buddy, and they're learning something important." Across town, inside the airline's glass headquarters, chaos reigned. Executives gathered in a sleek conference room as the PR team replayed the viral video on the big screen. Susan sat at the far end of the table, pale and trembling. Her name and face were everywhere online. Death threats, furious comments, public outrage. It was more than she could handle. The CEO, a stern woman named Taylor, slammed her hand on the table. "How could this happen? We preach diversity, inclusion, sensitivity." One executive interrupted. "We talk about it, but we don't enforce it." Glared at him but knew he was right. What's the damage? 17 million views and counting. Stock dropped 3% overnight, someone said grimly. Turned to Susan. "Do you understand the scale of what you did?" Susan's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to, I thought." "You thought he didn't belong there," cut in sharply. "You embarrassed this company and a child in front of the world." Back in his home office, Aaron received an email from the airline's legal team. "We sincerely apologize for the incident. We would like to meet privately to discuss compensation." He read it once, then deleted it. Money wasn't the goal, change was. Instead, Aaron drafted a new post. It read, "Compensation can't fix humiliation. I don't need free flights. I need assurance that no child of any color will be made to feel like mine did. Real apology equals real reform." He hit post. Within an hour, it had 1 million likes. Talk shows began quoting him. Celebrities retweeted. Activists called for boycotts. College professors shared his message with students studying ethics and bias. Susan's world crumbled while Aaron's grew louder, but still, he refused to attack her personally. When asked for comment, he told reporters, "This isn't about ruining someone's life. It's about saving others from the same pain." That statement stopped people in their tracks. It wasn't vengeance, it was vision. That evening, as Aaron tucked Malik into bed, the boy looked up sleepily. "Daddy, is the lady still mad?" Aaron hesitated, then said softly, "Maybe she's not mad, buddy. Maybe she's learning." Malik smiled faintly. "Can we fly again someday?" Aaron brushed his hair. "Of course, but next time we fly knowing we helped change something." Outside, flashing lights from news vans illuminated the house, but inside was peace. Aaron sat by the window, watching planes blink across the dark Texas sky. He knew there would be interviews, offers, and pressure, but none of it mattered. He didn't shout, he didn't demand. He simply stood tall, and somehow that was louder than the whole world screaming. His silence had become the thunder they couldn't ignore. The following week, the nation waited for Aaron Brooks. He'd agreed to appear on the Morning Window, one of America's most watched talk shows. Reporters called it the moment of truth. Aaron wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing accountability. Yet as he stood in the studio hallway, dressed in a sharp gray suit and holding Malik's tiny hand, the tension was undeniable. "Dad," Malik whispered, tugging his sleeve, "will she be there too?" Aaron knelt to meet his son's eyes. "Yes, buddy, Miss Susan will be there, and we're going to listen, not yell. Understand?" Malik nodded solemnly, like when coach says play smart, not hard. Aaron smiled faintly. "Exactly." The studio lights flooded the stage. The host, Kelly, greeted them warmly and led them to their seats. On the opposite couch sat Susan, eyes down, fingers trembling. Gone was the confident flight attendant. In her place sat a woman hollowed by shame and fear. The cameras rolled. Kelly began gently, "Mr. Brooks, the world has seen your video. You've inspired millions. Why did you decide to come here today?" Aaron leaned forward, his tone calm but commanding. "Because silence can't heal what's broken. I wanted a conversation, not chaos. My son deserved dignity. Every child does." Applause erupted from the audience. Kelly turned to Susan. "Ms., you've faced heavy backlash. Would you like to respond?" Susan's voice cracked. "I was wrong. There's no excuse. I thought I was following procedure, but the truth is, I made an assumption. I saw a young black boy in first class and thought something didn't add up. I didn't realize how deep that bias ran in me until it destroyed me." The studio fell silent. Aaron studied her quietly. She looked fragile, nothing like the woman from that flight. Finally, he said, "Owning it is the first step, but apology means change. It means making sure the next Malik isn't judged before he even sits down." Susan wiped her tears. "I know, and I'm willing to help. I've joined a racial sensitivity program. I'll volunteer wherever you think I can make a difference." Kelly glanced between them. "That's powerful, Mr. Brooks. How do you respond to that?" Aaron turned toward Susan. "You can't rewrite what happened, but you can write what happens next. If you're serious, help the airline reform its policies, not for me, but for the next parent who buys that ticket." The audience clapped softly, moved by his grace. That night, clips from the interview exploded online. Viewers flooded social media, praising Aaron for his strength and compassion. He turned fury into focus, one journalist tweeted. Behind the scenes, the airline couldn't ignore the growing pressure. Their CEO, Taylor, made a rare public address the next morning. Standing before flashing cameras, she said, "We failed to protect one of our youngest passengers. Effective immediately, we're launching a comprehensive inclusivity initiative, created in partnership with Mr. Brooks." Aaron hadn't agreed yet, but when he watched the broadcast, he knew it was the moment to turn pain into progress. He called personally. "If this is a stunt, I walk. If it's real, I'll help rebuild your culture." Didn't hesitate. "Mr. Brooks, I promise it's real. We need your voice." That weekend, Aaron flew back to the same airport, this time not as a passenger but as a consultant. News crews followed his every step. Malik held his hand as they walked through security, where passengers stopped them just to say thank you. In the terminal, Aaron paused near the gate from that fateful flight. He looked around and whispered to Malik, "Remember this place?" Malik nodded. "Yeah, but it feels different now." Aaron smiled. "It is different because now people see." As they boarded another plane, first class again, Susan appeared at the boarding door in a new uniform, eyes still humble but steadier than before. She met Malik's gaze. "Welcome aboard, young man," she said softly. And this time, nobody questioned his seat. 2 weeks later, Aaron Brooks walked through the towering glass doors of Sky America Airlines headquarters in Atlanta. His presence alone turned heads. He wasn't a celebrity to the employees. He was a reminder, a symbol of what could happen when truth made it out of the cabin. The CEO, Taylor, greeted him personally. "Aaron, welcome aboard officially. We're honored to have you as our new ethics and inclusion consultant." Aaron shook her hand firmly. "Honor's mutual, Ms. Taylor, but let's skip the ceremony. We've got work to do." Smiled impressed. "Straight to business, I like that." They entered a meeting room filled with managers, trainers, and flight attendants. Some nodded politely. Others barely looked up from their tablets. Aaron could sense the tension thick in the air. Change wasn't always welcome, especially from an outsider. He began calmly. "What happened to my son wasn't just about one bad moment. It was about a mindset, one that starts small but cuts deep. Today, we start unlearning it." He clicked the remote, showing slides of statistics, bias complaints, customer reviews, training gaps. "I'm not here to attack anyone. I'm here to make sure every passenger feels safe, respected, and seen. Halfway through the session, one senior flight attendant, Mark Stevens, crossed his arms. With all due respect, Mr. Brooks, we've done this before. Sensitivity seminars, posters, slogans, nothing changes. Passengers still act crazy and we take the blame. Aaron nodded slowly. That's fair, but what if this time you helped build the system instead of being forced into it? Mark frowned. What do you mean? Aaron smiled. Real reform starts from the ground up. You've flown for years. You know what works and what doesn't. I want your input, not your obedience. The room went quiet. Some heads turned toward Mark, surprised by Aaron's openness. Leaned in. You're suggesting we make the flight staff part of the design process. Aaron nodded. Exactly. If they help build it, they'll protect it. That changed everything. Suddenly, hands began to rise. Ideas poured in, scenarios, new wording for safety announcements, empathy training tied to real-world experiences. But not everyone was on board. Later that day, Aaron overheard whispers in the hallway. Brooks thinks he's saving the airline, one voice muttered. He's just making us look like racists. Another replied, he should taken the payout and disappeared. Aaron paused but didn't react. He'd faced worse on darker days. This wasn't about ego, it was about endurance. That night in his hotel room overlooking the Atlanta skyline, he sat by the window with a notebook. Malik's picture sat on the table beside a half-empty coffee cup. He wrote, "Change doesn't happen by shouting louder, it happens by standing longer." The next morning he was back at headquarters early. He started one-on-one sessions with staff, listening more than talking. By noon, word spread that Brooks wasn't there to shame anyone. He was there to understand. Even Mark, the skeptic, approached him after a session. You know, maybe you're not what I expected. Aaron chuckled. Most people are. By week's end, something remarkable began happening. Employees who once avoided him now sought his opinion. Internal memos quoted his phrases. A flight safety trainer even posted his words on the board. Respect is not a rule. It's a reflex you choose every day. But as progress grew, so did pushback. One night, Aaron received an anonymous email from a blocked address. You're making enemies up here. Maybe it's time to quit before someone grounds you permanently. He stared at the screen, pulse steady. Fear, no. Frustration, yes, but he'd come too far to back down now. Aaron closed the laptop and whispered to himself, if the truth shakes them, they needed shaking. Outside, a plane soared into the night sky, its lights flickering across the window glass, a silent reminder of why he started this fight. Tomorrow, the real storm would begin. Aaron Brooks arrived at Sky America headquarters Monday morning to find the air thick with unease. Whispers followed him down the hallway. Conversation stopped when he entered a room. Something was off. The warning email from the week before echoed in his mind. Maybe it's time to quit before someone grounds you permanently. But Aaron didn't quit. He adjusted his tie and walked straight into the executive briefing room. Inside, Taylor stood at the head of the table, flanked by legal advisors and PR officers. Their faces were tense. On the wall screen, paused mid-frame, was a security video from an airport lounge. Aaron talking to a female employee. What's this? He asked calmly. His tone was guarded. Someone leaked footage, Aaron. The media's already running with it. They're saying you harassed a staff member. Aaron blinked in disbelief. What? That's absurd. I was explaining the new inclusion forms. She asked for help. One of the lawyers sighed. It doesn't matter what really happened. It looks bad. Added, we're under immense pressure. If we don't act quickly, this could undo everything we've built. Aaron's voice dropped to a low, controlled tone. So you're saying the man who fought for accountability is now being framed for the same thing? No one answered. Within hours, the internet erupted again, but this time against him. Brooks' scandal trended on social media. Fake screenshots, doctored messages, and edited clips painted Aaron as manipulative, even predatory. News anchors debated his true motives. Commentators who once praised him now turned skeptical. Malik came home from school upset. "Dad, my friend said you did something bad." Aaron knelt beside him, his heart cracking. "You know me, Malik. I would never hurt anyone. Sometimes when people don't like the truth, they try to make others stop listening." Malik nodded slowly. "So they're scared of you." Aaron smiled faintly. "Exactly. Scared of what happens when good people don't stay quiet." That night Aaron sat alone in his study, replaying the footage over and over. The timestamp, the angle, it was all too convenient. Someone had planned this. He called Jasmine, his sister. "They're setting me up." She didn't sound surprised. "Of course they are. You hit a nerve, Aaron. Change always costs someone their comfort, and they'll fight to keep it." Aaron leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I can't let Malik see me lose this battle." "Then don't," Jasmine said simply. "Expose them. Use the same light they used against you." The next morning, Aaron arrived at headquarters earlier than usual. He walked straight into the IT department. The staff hesitated. He wasn't supposed to be there, but his quiet authority made them listen. "I need to see where that footage came from," he said. "Pull the original file." One technician hesitated, then nodded. A few keystrokes later, the truth appeared on screen. The video metadata showed clear tampering. The original version, still stored in the system, proved the conversation was professional, respectful, and short. Aaron exhaled slowly. "Download it, send it to directly." Within hours, the lie began to unravel. News outlets retracted their claims. Hashtags shifted from Brooks scandal to Brooks framed. Public sympathy flooded back. Called him into her office. "Aaron, I don't know who inside this company tried to destroy you, but we'll find them." Aaron met her gaze. "Don't find them for me. Find them for every voice they've tried to silence." By evening, the board had called an emergency meeting. The internal investigation revealed that the leak came from a senior executive, Mark Stevens, the same flight attendant turned supervisor who had once challenged Aaron in training. When security escorted Mark out of the building, he glared at Aaron. "You don't belong here, Brooks. You'll never be one of us." Aaron didn't flinch. "Good, I'm not here to belong, I'm here to build." As Mark disappeared down the corridor, turned to Aaron. "You've got the entire nation watching again. What are you going to do next?" Aaron looked out the window at the runway lights shimmering in the dusk. His reflection stared back, calm, steady, unbroken. "I'm going to finish what I started," he said softly. "And this time they'll hear me from the skis." A year had passed since Malik was removed from first class. Aaron Brooks had become a quiet force for change inside Sky America Airlines. Policies had been rewritten, training programs overhauled, and employees across every department now underwent rigorous inclusion workshops. The airline wasn't perfect, but it was better, and Aaron had ensured it. Today, he and Malik were boarding a flight to Dallas again. The same route, the same airline, but everything felt different. "Daddy, are we really flying first class again?" Malik asked, clutching his toy plane. Aaron smiled. "This time, son, it's your seat, no questions asked. No one will tell you otherwise." As they approached the boarding door, a familiar figure stood waiting. Susan, the flight attendant who had once humiliated Malik, now wore a new uniform and a nervous but hopeful expression. "Welcome aboard, Malik," she said softly, holding out her hand. Malik hesitated for a heartbeat, then smiled and waved. Aaron's gaze met hers. No hostility, no anger, just acknowledgement. Susan had changed. Her humility was genuine, her understanding hard-won. Aaron whispered to Malik, "See, son, people can learn, they can grow." As they settled into their first-class seats, Aaron glanced out the window. The city below glittered in the early evening light. It was peaceful, but above them, the sky held the promise of endless possibilities. The flight took off smoothly, the hum of the engines a comforting lullaby. Malik leaned against Aaron, toy plane clutched to his chest, eyes wide as the city shrank below. Halfway through, the captain made an announcement. "Ladies and we have a special guest aboard today, Mr. Aaron Brooks and his son Malik. Thank you for joining us." Passengers glanced over, murmured greetings, and even offered smiles. Some recognized them from the viral video. Others were strangers simply witnessing an extraordinary story unfold in real time. Aaron took a deep breath, savoring the quiet victory. This was more than just a flight. It was a statement. Dignity, respect, and equality could exist even at 30,000 feet. Susan approached with a tray of refreshments. "Can I get you anything, Malik?" she asked. The boy smiled brightly. "Just a soda, please, and a seat that's all mine." Aaron chuckled. "Exactly right." The flight continued smoothly. Aaron noticed how subtly the cabin environment had changed. The staff were more attentive, polite, and empathetic. The small acts of respect across dozens of flights had begun to shift the airline's culture. Later, as the plane began its descent, Aaron placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "You did something important, son. You were brave without even knowing it." Malik looked up puzzled. "Me? I didn't do anything." Aaron shook his head gently. "Yes, you did. You showed the world that nobody should be judged for who they are, not even at 30,000 feet. And sometimes just standing still is enough to start a storm of change." Malik beamed, resting his head against his father's chest. As the wheels touched down, Aaron glanced at Susan. She nodded quietly, almost imperceptibly, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they'd all endured: mistakes, learning, and finally, redemption. The passengers applauded as the plane taxied to the gate. Aaron and Malik stood, collected their bags, and stepped off the aircraft. Outside, reporters captured the moment, but Aaron ignored the cameras. This wasn't about recognition anymore. It was about legacy. Malik skipped ahead, holding his toy plane high. "Daddy, look, we made it." Aaron smiled, watching his son's joy. "Yes, son, we did." As they walked toward the terminal, Aaron knew this wasn't the end. The work, the lessons, the fight for dignity, it would continue. But for now, he let the moment linger. They had faced injustice, navigated hostility, and emerged stronger. Above them, a plane soared against the golden sunset, a symbol of freedom, hope, and redemption. And in that light, Aaron realized the ultimate victory. Revenge had never been the goal. Respect, change, and courage, that was the power he had fought for. And he had won, not with anger, but with the quiet, unshakable strength of a father who refused to let the world take his son's dignity. Malik laughed, spinning around in the terminal. Aaron held his hand, letting the joy wash over him. Together they walked forward, above the clouds, beyond prejudice, and into a future they had earned. The storm had passed. What remained was victory, grace, and a sky wide open for everyone.